Today I'm going to show you how to repair some cloth diapers. These are BumGenius pockets. I can't remember if they're 3.0 or 4.0, but they're your standard run-of-the-mill Applix diapers with the snap-down rise. So my friend used these with her son, and she wants to use them with her daughter, but they need a little bit of a refresher. Their elastic is really not stretchy anymore, and you can see on the laundry tab that the velcro is so worn down that it just doesn't stick anymore. The front panel's not too bad, but the laundry tabs and the side tabs, which are already removed, just weren't sticking at all. BumGenius sells these great little packets here that come with everything you need. So you're going to need to order these. It comes with new tabs, new laundry tabs. It doesn't come with a new front panel for your velcro, but it also comes with the new elastic and directions on how to do everything. You're also going to need a seam ripper, some scissors, safety pins, and embroidery floss, or just regular string with a needle. And you're going to need that for the elastic. So to get started on the repairs, you want to remove the tabs over here, which are already done. You just use those with your seam ripper. The directions that came with the packet didn't say anything about removing the laundry tabs, but you can if you want. I will show you though that look how reinforced that is. You may as well just sew the new tab on over top of it, because pulling all of that off is going to be a major pain in the butt. So now I'm going to flip the diaper inside out, and we are going to expose the elastic so that we can replace that. So I'm going to start with the back here, and you can make sure you're paying attention. You can see this is the very end here. This is the back. This goes over your baby's bottom, and then you can see right there, just barely, you can see the elastic poking through. That is where we are going to start ripping our seam as close as we can. And if you're going to accidentally cut any fabric here, you're going to want to cut the suede cloth, not the PUL, because if you put a hole in the suede cloth, it's not as big of a deal as it is if you poke a hole in the PUL. Now you can see I've exposed the elastic just a little bit. I'm not going to pull the whole I'm not going to pull the whole seam where the elastic is. I'm just going to expose the end so that I can get to in there. And I need to pull that right there and see how it's nice and exposed. I've got my seam allowance right here, and you can see the elastic. And you want to do that for the beginning and end of each one. So here's one side. I'm going to go over to the other side and do the same thing. Make sure there's the elastic. I can see him right there. And go ahead and rip the seam. And you really don't need to rip a lot, just a little bit. Just so that you're exposing the elastic just at the end, and so that you have enough room to sew the new elastic in. And you're going to do that for the back, and for each leg gusset. Expose both sides. Not the whole thing, just both sides. Okay, now comes the exciting part, I guess you could say. It's not quite so fun, but it is exciting. You're going to need your new elastic and a safety pin. Now, I've just exposed the beginning and the end of each tube of elastic here. I haven't cut any of the elastic, I just exposed it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pin this on where I need it to be. So I'll just put the pin through there, and then I'm going to pin it right on top of where the other elastic is, where the old elastic is. And I'm just going to put it through the seam allowance. I'm not putting it through the whole diaper, just the seam allowance where the old elastic begins. Just like that. And so it's nice and secure, so when I go to pull it through, that's why I'm using a safety pin. If I used a regular pin, if I pulled it through, I'd end up pulling the whole pin through as well. And I don't want that. You definitely don't want to be losing your elastic in the middle of the diaper here. And so now I'm going to pull this through a little bit so that I have just a little bit of the old elastic coming through. And this is where your embroidery floss comes into play. And you can use regular thread if you want, but I'm using embroidery floss because it's a little bit thicker, and like I said, you certainly don't want to lose your elastic in the middle of your diaper. That will not be fun. So I'm just going to really quick do a quick knot on here. I'm sewing one quick knot, the old elastic to the new elastic. That way I can pull it through. You can, if you want to, do the regular old pushing it through, like cutting out the old elastic and pushing it through with a wire hanger or a chopstick or whatever. The instructions on the packet actually say to use a safety pin. Now, I don't know about you, but I'd rather not destroy the PUL. So, no thanks on the safety pin. This is going to give you the least amount of headaches. So now you can see that, that I've got my new elastic sewn just with a quick knot onto the old elastic. And now I'm going to cut in between here where the old elastic is sewn to the diaper. Okay, and my new elastic is still sewn to it. Now I'm going to come to the other end, and you may have to help feed it through this hole at first, but it'll fit through there a lot easier than it would with a wire hanger. And now I've got my old elastic right over here, and I'm going to pull that, which is going to pull the new elastic through for me. See how easy that was? 0 headaches involved. None whatsoever. No fiddling. Boom. And now I'm going to safety pin this side over here. Before I cut this, I'm not cutting this yet because I don't want that getting sucked back in there. So I'm going to take another safety pin and I'm going to pin it right on top of where the old elastic is, so that it doesn't move around and so that it's easy to sew. Now, I mean, obviously when you go to sew, you're just going to hold it on, or you can use a straight pin, but like I said, safety pin for now. Elastic can be a little tricky to work with because it's stretchy, and so if you aren't holding the right amount of tension on it, or you slip accidentally, again, you do not want to lose the end of your elastic through. You can always pull it back, but it's just a pain. So try not to poke your fingers when you're poking this through. There we go. Alright, now I'm ready to cut off my old elastic. I don't need that anymore. So I'll just snip him right there, and I'll snip where I sewed them together. Right there. Okay, you see this old elastic? There's like 0 stretch involved in that. As opposed to one of the new elastics, which, you know, is, you can even see just in the width the difference how this one is so stretched out and that one's not. You see, much stretchier, much stretchier. Okay, so I've got all my elastic pulled through, I've got everybody pinned, and now I'm ready to sew. I'm not sewing the elastic through the actual diaper. I'm just sewing it to the seam allowance where I pinned it to. This is the seam allowance, that's where it's getting sewn to. Here's the elastic pinned on there. Now, I'm going to unpin this and I'm going to hold it very firmly because I don't want to lose my elastic in there. So I'm holding the tip of my elastic and undoing the safety pin. Still have the elastic in my hand, and now I'm ready to sew it. Okay, you can see where the old elastic is. I'm just going to sew my new elastic right over top of that. So kind of pull out the seam allowance just a little bit to expose it a little bit. You can use a straight pin to hold it on there. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to sew it. So we're all ready to go. Get it under the machine, foot down, put my needle down, and get ready to go. So I'm going to go forward, I'm going to go backwards, and forward again. You want to go over this a few times because that's going to get you a really nice strong stitch. You don't want to do all this work and then go to put the diaper on and undo everything that you just did. Okay, elastic is sewn on. There we go. Now, to close up this little seam, I have to flip the diaper back right side out. Because there's the stitching that we undid when we exposed the elastic. We undid this stitching right here. And in order to fix that, now we get to sew. So, and you don't have to do this if you don't want to. It's not going to affect the structural integrity of the diaper at all. I'm just going over where the old stitches were. Just from one side to the other, and that's it. And you'll want to do your back stitches. But again, this is more for aesthetics. This isn't for anything structural, so it's not a big deal if it's exposed or anything like that. It'll only be that little tiny bit on the inside where you exposed it anyway. But that's it. That's how you do the elastic. The elastic is done on both sides here now. Much stretchier than it was before. And then you can get started on your Velcro tabs. After you replace all of the elastic on your diaper, you can do the hook and loop tabs. You want the hook, which is the scratchy side, to be facing inward, and the loop, which is the crossover tab, it's the softer one, that one faces outward. You can pin these on, you can do them one at a time, or you can just hold them and do them both at the same time, like I'm gonna do. So these are pretty easy because you can just line them up with where you saw that the other tab was. And just try to make sure that everybody's straight and stays together. I'm going to sew straight down and then go all the way around, which is what BumGenius recommends in their directions. And you can go around these twice or more. I would do 2 or 3 times. You're going to be pulling on these a lot, so you want them to be nice and strong. So make sure you do your back stitch. You take your time going around the curve. Turn it. And then I'm going to go around it one last time. Now you can shorten your stitch length if you'd like. It'll make your stitches a little less visible. You could also use invisible thread if you wanted as well. But it doesn't really matter. And back stitch. I'll trim my stringies in a minute. But see? New tab. And then you can sew on your new crossover tab, which pretty simple. We're just going to sew that one on over top. And again, you can pin this if you want, you don't have to. Make sure that you're only sewing on the suede cloth and not through the PUL. So I'm just going to hold it over top. And with this, I'm also going to do the same thing. I'm going to go around twice to make sure that it's on there really secure. Because this is another part of the diaper where it's going to get a lot of use. You know, you're going to be velcroing and unvelcroing this every single time you wash your diapers. Kind of went too far. Usually for things like these, I don't always do my back stitch because I know I'm going to be going over it several times. And so I know that it's going to get a nice secure stitch on there. It's not a big deal if I don't do my back stitch. Though it is a good habit to be in to make sure that you always do the back stitch. But again, not a big deal if you know that you're going to be going over it a couple times anyway. So that's one round, and I'll go around one more time. Last side, and I will do my back stitch here just to be sure. And that's it. Now I've got my laundry tab on there, my hook and loop, and perfect. Ta-da!